Welcome to the channel. I'm Gillis TV. Today we're going to be discussing what's next for Evan Bouchard after the announcement of Brock Faber signing a massive deal with the Minnesota Wild. But first, if you're new to the channel, like anything NHL related, for sure the Edmonton Oilers, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we are 171 away from our goal of 1,000 subscribers. If you guys could do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Now let's get into this. Minnesota drop in the news today. They signed Brock Faber to 8-year, $8.5 million AAV contract. This is for a guy that's only played 84 games in the NHL, played all 82 last season, had 47 points in those, and was a -1. Now, what does that mean for Evan Bouchard? Because Brock Faber's doesn't start till after this upcoming season. Well, Bouchard's for sure getting a pay raise. We all knew that. But is this another one of those scenarios where with the Darnell Nurse, all these guys were getting more money and all that than what they should have? Are we falling into that scenario with Evan Bouchard? And we're already talking $10 million for Evan Bouchard. Now, that might go up, considering Brock Faber's played 84 games in his total NHL career, going to be making 8.5 in the 2025-2026 season. Where Evan Bouchard, are we talking $12 million now? I hope not. I know there's rumors out there that Leon Draisaitl said he would take less money if other players took less money, i.e. more than likely McDavid and Bouchard. Of course, we know Adam Henrique left money on the table to come back to Edmonton. So we're talking about the Edmonton Oilers and Evan Bouchard. And going over his career, he played 81 games last season, had 82 points, 18 goals, 64 assists. Of course, that D pairing with Mattias Ekholm was a +34, and he played pretty solid. In his career, he has 171 points in 265 games. So that's only, 90-some games. He didn't register a point. He is starting to play really well on the penalty kill. Of course, we don't have to talk about that power play because he's just one of 5 weapons on that power play unit when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. And what did he do in the postseason this last season? 32 points in 25 games was a +14. Ultimately just missing the Stanley Cup and whatnot in his career for the playoffs. He's 58 points in 53 games. I'm sorry. He is going to get a pay raise. We all know that. But is Brock Faber's new contract going to affect what Evan Bouchard gets? I believe it might, as Bouchard might look, hey, this kid only played 84 games in his career, is making $8.5 million. Not taking anything away from Brock Faber. Watching him, he's growing into a top NHL defenseman, but Evan Bouchard's already up there in the names list over this past season with the Quinn Hughes, the Noah Dobsons, the Cale Makars. We all know what Evan Bouchard brings to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, are we talking, like I said, $12 million? I hope not. Don't get me wrong. I really do hope that it is the $10 million. He takes a pay cut because the Edmonton Oilers right now are building that dynasty around Evan Bouchard, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl. Look at Nugent Hopkins and Hyman's contracts, $5 and $5.5 million. I'm sorry. They've put up 100-point seasons. Hyman has a 50-goal season under his belt, all worth $10.5 million combined, both of those over the last 2 seasons. Now, that's just great, and that's a great contract for both of those guys. So I am really hoping that Evan Bouchard does say, hey, look, I want to win in Edmonton with the rest of these guys. We are the core group. We're building a dynasty here, and I believe the Edmonton Oilers are on that way of a dynasty team. And don't get me wrong, this might be a little biased because I'm an Oilers fan, but I do believe that in the next 9 years or so, Edmonton will have 3 or 4 Stanley Cups just by players want to come to Edmonton now. Players want to play with McDavid, Draisaitl, Nuge. They see what's happening in Edmonton, and it's one of those things where, yes, if you take a pay cut now, you actually save your team later on in the future. Say Bouchard takes $10 million, saves, say the offer was 12 and he said, no, I'll take 10. Well, in 5 years from now, the salary cap could go up, $10, $15 million. Well, right there, that's Evan Bouchard in the next 5 years. So looking at things like that and whatnot will help the Edmonton Oilers. I really do hope Bouchard takes a pay cut. I believe that Draisaitl wants to stay in Edmonton as well. He might take a pay cut to stay in Edmonton. I'm not talking $2, $3, $4 million for these guys, but they might say, hey, keep $1 million. That $1 million will grow somewhere, especially when it comes to the cap circulation there at the trade deadline. If you have no LTIR, you have $1 million at the NHL trade deadline. You might have $4 million in actual salary that you can actually go out and get a player. So that's just something us Oilers fans need to watch out for. Is this the start of another Darnell Nurse thing where, hey, that's the going rate for an NHL defenseman like Darnell Nurse when Seth Jones signed that contract, Werenski signed that, I believe maybe Dougie Hamilton, I can't remember if he was part of that group. Sorry. But hopefully that doesn't affect what Evan Bouchard is wanting with the Edmonton Oilers here. But that's pretty much it for me today. Just kind of rambling about how Brock Faber's contract could really affect the Edmonton Oilers and Evan Bouchard's negotiations. But we'll see where it goes from there. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Gillis TV. Have a good one.